You ever feel like there's just no escape? It's the same day after day after day.
Hi, Elric.
Hi, Matt.
I want to ask, what is the genesis of the Dead Thing, and what compelled you to put modern dating as the anchor of the story?
Um, so I was lucky enough to not need to go on internet dating for for to settle down, but I worked with a coworker who would tell me the funniest and craziest stories of her internet dating, and she was spending a lot of time trying all the different apps and meeting very different guys, and it was a very different tone than my movie. Hers was much funnier and kind of silly, but it definitely made me think how horrific the internet. One thing the internet seems to have done is this thing for that we could connect to anyone in the world, and yet often we're alone looking at a screen
Yeah.
by ourselves, and it feels very isolating. And I thought a character lost in online dating could be a very interesting starting point for a horror film. So it just started as a very small kernel, and then I thought, well, what if somebody really connects to somebody, and then every twist makes it much more impossible. And I don't think she's has a death drive, but she certainly has some dark secret that she's kind of hiding from something. And I think the two things when they meet are trouble. so so there's definitely a bit of the Black Mirror, the idea of Black Mirror, the concept, the sci-fi type concept, running through it as well, because I think that is our modern one of our modern dilemmas. Yeah.
This is your first solo directed feature. Can you share some filmmakers and any film series that you immersed on to prepare for this film?
Yeah, so the films I made this before this was with a guy called Alex Greenhoff, and they were New Zealand no budget feature films, like really no money, like $500 per feature, very realistic. Very few people will have seen them. They're made in New Zealand, and I always wanted to make horror films even back then, but couldn't figure out how to financially do it. So then, when I was starting to think about the story here, there's a movie called Habit by Larry Fessenden, which is a great indie vampire film, a very stripped down, very realistic telling of a story. And we kind of used that as a guide of that's the kind of movie we wanted to make. We weren't stealing directly from it, but we knew it was about emotional character journey type of film. And then I like David Lynch is my favorite filmmaker, so aesthetically I'm always drawn to mystery and music and emotion and some beauty. Those are things I love so much in his work all these years. So horror films are still an inspiration, but there were less horror filmmakers. Uh, I love Cronenberg and Clive Barker and people like that. But I didn't. I try not to watch too much. The Japanese filmmaker Kiyoshi Kurosawa, um, definitely the DNA somehow made it into the movie for sure. His film Cure, I think, is one of the other great modern movies about just kind of a modern sickness almost. Pulse has a lot of that in it too. So you try not to get too. You don't want to put your heroes too much at the front of your mind, otherwise it'll become overwhelming. But it always soaks into your work somehow.
Alex?
Kyle, we don't really need to talk, do we?
I was immediately drawn into Blu Hunt as
Yeah.
Alex. I found her performance very understated, very fierce throughout the film.
Yeah.
What was it like working with her?
When people talk about directing being hard or easy, the key to directing is you don't have to do it if you cast really well. You, she didn't need me to direct her. Like she just needed me to keep directing the story in the film. I very rarely had to give her direction. I remember her asking for direction once, and I said to her, "If I say anything to you, I might ruin the thing that you're doing." And I'm saying nothing. She was such a technically great actress, that she just always knew where she was at any time in the story and the emotions. And so thankfully I just had to photograph her and keep the story moving. She was, a real just a joy. And I couldn't tell that from her previous film, The New Mutants, which was a big movie. It's a much more general kind of performance style for all of the cast. And so I had to look up other things. She had done some short films just to make sure she could be realistic. That was what I was concerned about. And she exceeded my expectations. And I think what I'm most proud of with this film is that people will see it and she will get cast in more things because people will realize she's like, I love that you used the word fierce. That's a great way to put it. She doesn't back down from anything, and she was open to giving everything to the movie because she knew this is a small independent film. If everyone holds back, it can't ever get discovered. Everyone has to give everything and to give it any chance to be seen, I think. And yeah, she was really incredible. And we just had the LA premiere 2 nights ago here in LA, and she was there, and it was just great to see everyone together again for the first
Yeah.
time in a while. It was nice.
Without spoiling, my favorite scene in The Dead Thing is this long take sequence with Alex and Chris in a pool.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah.
can you share some behind the scenes stories when you shot these scenes?
Well, one is funny. It's definitely the funniest thing that happened on the film. So that scene is a long take. I won't say why it's a long take, but it was written in the script. It's the only thing in the whole script that was written where it said the camera. You know, usually you don't mention camera, but I had to make it very clear in the script what this scene was. And when we shot it, so we needed an unbroken take on two actors in a pool with no cuts for about 6 or 7 minutes or so. And so Ben, who is the love interest in the movie, the main love interest, happens to be a major stuntman in the world. He's very very well known from Fury Road. He's one of the guys playing the guitar. He's the Dupe Warrior. He's the stuntman for the Dupe Warrior, and he's also in Furiosa as one of the main guys on the tanker chase. So he's incredible. That's why his hair's short. His hair was long when I cast him, and then he called me and said, George Miller just called me back to the desert. I have to shave my head again. And I was like, no, it worked out. But he said, you know what? I could wear a scuba diving tank and, I could go under and help you with the scene at the end so we can have an unbroken take. And I said, fantastic. And unfortunately, when we watched the playback, the two characters talking, it looked like one of them was passing gas for the whole take because all these bubbles were coming up as they were talking. We were like, oh, that's not going to work. And then he said, well, I also can just hold my breath for 5 minutes. And we are like, what? He's like, yeah, I can do that. And we're like, oh my God. So of course he did. And that's how we were executing the scene, it was pretty wild. So having somebody like that who is a bit of a freak of nature, to be honest, Ben, his ability just physically to do anything is pretty interesting. And he's Australian and a very funny guy. And so, yeah, but I'm glad you enjoyed that scene because that's one of my favorite. It was one of my favorites to have to kind of get it right. You
Yeah,
can't
awesome.
hide. Once you have a long take, you can never hide anything.
Yeah.
Hey, I need to talk to you. Kyle?
I'm sorry. Have we met?
You don't remember me?
I love that Shudder is premiering this film on Feb 14. Can you tell me
love
why
that.
that thing should be included on everyone's watch list on Valentine's Day?
Well, because you've already had the upper of Heart. What is the one with the Heart's killer? I've just forgot the name of it. With his Hard Eyes. Hard Eyes. So Hard Eyes is a really fun rom-com, very upbeat, very funny slasher film coming out on February 7th from a friend of mine, and it's a really fun movie, and it makes total sense for Valentine's. And so I want to be the realistic, downbeat, sad. I want to be the Valentine warning for people to watch out and maybe not go on a internet date that day. To me, that's exciting to be a counter program. So I really love that Shudder. It was suggested pretty early, and I didn't know if they would really be able to pull it off. And it's amazing that we're coming out on that day. So I'm very happy about that.
So everyone should watch this film Feb 14 on a morning. So
Yeah,
they'll have
yeah.
a chance to change their mind.
Yeah, exactly. It's not too late. You can.
We don't really need to talk, do we?